Hello everyone, Johnny here. Today in this session, we will try to learn about how to use Fetch API in order to load some data. It will try to give some request to the server, and based upon the request, it will try to load some information. It can receive some updates from the server, or it can happen without reloading the complete page. For example, we can also use fetch, or else we have something called ajax. In ajax we use something called XMLHttpRequest, which is almost similar to this fetch, but in fetch we will try to use something called promises, whereas it will try to provide the clear and a complete neat code when compared to XMLHttpRequest of ajax. This API, this fetch API is like an interface that allows us to make some request from the HTTP request to the server from our web browser. From our web browser, we can send a request to the server. We can say it is a connection. We can say it's a interface. So first, let us write the syntax. First one, in order to send a request. First one, in order to send a request. In order to send a request, we use fetch. So how do we write the syntax for it? In this fetch, it always requires only one parameter. That parameter would be a URL. That is the resource where we need to fetch. The resource where we need to fetch. So let me write the basic syntax for this. I can write something like this. Fetch URL. Fetch URL. It means we are trying to fetch the value here. We are trying to fetch the value here. In this, we are trying to fetch some value. The fetch method will try to return a promise indirectly, so we need to use something called then and catch methods here. We will try to use then and catch method. So I'm just trying to use without arrow functions first. The syntax we need to pass, we will handle here some function. Next one, we use catch here. We use catch. We use catch. Again inside this we have something called a function. We have something called a function here. Fetch will have one parameter called URL, and it will try to return a promise. So in order to handle this, we will be writing something called then and a catch. Then and a catch, and the URL would be a parameter for this fetch. Now in suppose what is the use of this, like then and catch? Here we will be trying to handle the data from the API. In then we will try to handle the data from the API. We will handle data from API. We will handle the data from the API. Whereas in the catch, if for example, if your server has some error, like if you have any issues with the code, issues or errors, then we can go for catch. This is where you will handle the server errors, like any uh, data is missing or some 404, like we will find some errors, right? In the same way, we can handle some data in this catch block. Whereas in the then, we will try to handle the data from the API. We can say we will handle a response here simply. In then we will handle a response here, and in catch we will try to handle error. And then we can handle an error. If I want to write the same code using some arrow functions, like the same notation, we can use in this way. I'm trying to write the same notation, it's the same syntax. Fetch URL, then I can write something called a response indirectly, a response followed by an arrow function, followed by an arrow function here. Now instead of writing this function, I'm just trying to write error. Because we will try to use this notation, I'm just trying to write it here. So when the request completes, the resource will be available, in the sense the data will be available here, and at the time promise will try to resolve in this response, in the response part. And the response will have a number of methods, like we can have something called text, JSON, and there are several methods where we can manipulate, handle the data. or else where we can use to inspect the response like text, JSON, and all these things. So we have seen the basic syntax for the fetch here. So here we can say the fetch will try to have asynchronous request. What do you mean by asynchronous request? Asynchronous request in the sense, when we are trying to send a request, when we are trying to send a request, it will not block anything. In the sense, it will not block anything, and at a time it will try to perform another operations also. If we can handle multiple operations at once, then we call it as asynchronous. Synchronous is the sense, when we send a request, again until or unless the request has been completed, it will not perform any other operations. Whereas fetch is something like asynchronous. Fetch is something like asynchronous here. So it will try to perform an asynchronous request to the server, and it will try to resolve the corresponding values. Now what we will try to do is that we will try to handle some basic data. We will try to handle some basic data in order to fetch an API. So let me take a basic API, and I will try to use my profile also. Control Shift Tab. I'm just trying to place everything in the comments, and in this, let me write move. What we can say, I want to handle something called a food related API here. The meal DB API. I'm trying to use meal DB API here. So in this API, let me take one of the thing. So let me take this one. I'm just trying to use this API here, and I just want to use in this. So first one, in order to handle this, we will try to write something called fetch followed by URL. Just now I have copied an URL of meals, so I just need to place this in the quotes, single quotes. It means now the fetch is a method which is accepting the URL of mealdb.com API. In this, we are trying to have then inside this, then we will handle the response. Sorry, response dot text. I'm trying to handle this data in the format of text. Next one, again I'm trying to write then. Here I just want to display the data. I just want to display the data here. Console.log. It means I'm trying to take an arrow function here where it will try to accept this data. If we can see this here, we are trying to use the then in order to handle the data from the API, which is we are trying to use in the format of text here, and I just want to echo this. I just want to see how the data is able to display. If we can see this console, so let me say this. Okay, done. Now if we can see here, we got something called the API, the complete API details. So if I can also paste this, for example, if I can also paste this in the browser also, I'll be getting in the same format. Can you see here? I got the complete details like this. I got complete details in the format of text here. For suppose if I want to get the same data in the format of a JSON, in the form of an object, then I can write JSON. We have several methods here in order to manipulate it. So if you can see here, we got all the data in the format of this list. So if you can see here, this is the format of category, str, all the details of that API. So here we are trying to use a fetch where it will try to retrieve the data. So this is how we have done with a basic example. How to have this thing. Here response dot text will convert the response in the format as text, whereas response.json will try to parse the response in the format of JSON object. JSON object. So if we can see here, we are trying to use something called a get request here, which will try to fetch the data. It means it will try to send a direct call, and it will try to fetch the data here. For suppose I'm trying to print the result here. I'm just trying to print the result here. Suppose I want to handle something called my GitHub profile, like I want to use, this is the basic example what we have done for a food meal, like related to food we have trying to do this thing. Now let us write the same snippet. I'm just trying to use the same snippet here, and I want to change the API here, and I want to change the API for GitHub users. I just want to change the API for GitHub users here. I'm just trying to take the second API here, and let me check how does it goes. I'm trying to use second API which is related to GitHub here. If you can see here, see we got all the data, like all the 30 users in the URL also, like in the API also. MOJ is something is there, like name, the same person details is there, like whatever the data what we got, it is displayed in the format of and JSON object here. In the sense I'm trying to use the second API here. I'm trying to use the second API. Hope you are clear with the first one and second one. In the sense I have just changed an API in the line number 37. Here whatever we got is in the format of a JSON object. Which will also, we can also use several methods in order to manipulate this data. Now instead of using this, let me write some example where I will try to fetch my GitHub account. I mean, I want to fetch my details of personal details. Like for example, see here, I'm trying to use the same thing, API users. But instead of all the users, let me write my profile name directly. Let me write my profile name. This is my profile name, like Johnny Trainer, and I got this API. Like I have only one repository, I have created it newly. So this is my API. So from this JSON object, from these values, I want to retry and I want to display in the browser. I just want to display this thing in the browser. So then I can write same thing here, Johnny Trainer. If you can see here, so we got it. So let me put this in the comments. I just don't want to use this. I just want to use only the first one. So we got the complete details, like the values what we got here, the same values we got in the same page. Now uh, we are able to display the values only in the console part, instead of displaying this in the console, instead of displaying this in the, if you are aware of arrow function here, then you will understand like what we are trying to do also, like these two line syntax. So here I just want to display these details in the this browser part. So in order to display this, I'm trying to write first one. In order to display this data, I want to write a method here. I just want to write a method. See, as we have discussed in the syntax, we also have a catch. For example, if I have some errors also, we can just write catch error. Inside this, we can also define like what is the error you like. If I have any error in this retrieving, then we can write it in this way. So if I have some error in this also, it will try to show. So for example, I have taken something like this. Let me see. Response is not defined. So we will get some errors like this. So whatever the errors you face, we can handle in the catch block, but it is not handled by class block, that it is directly displaying us. Now I want to take these values and I want to display the details of the my GitHub profile account in this browser white space. I just want to display in the browser. So let me write first one. Let me write some function here. I'm trying to write a function. The function name is appendData, or else I will write get data. I'm just trying to use get data here in this function. But whatever the data is stored, it is stored in the line number 43. In the sense, it will be stored here. So can't we call a function here? Can't we, instead of console.log, can't I call something like get data. It means indirectly we are trying to call this function here. So get data. Inside this we are trying to pass whatever the data is stored, retrieved will be stored in data, and I want to pass the same thing here in the form of parameter. Get data. Now in this get data, let me define a container. So I just want to display something here. So let me take in the body tag div of id equal to let me write profile. We are just trying to write a profile data here. So let me write the same thing here. Document dot get element by id of what is this profile. I have retrieved the value of profile here. So let me store the same thing here. Main equals to document dot get element by id of profile. Document dot get element by id of profile. So in this it means we are trying to read this element profile from here. So it is trying to store in main. Now I want to create a div here. I just want to create a dynamic div where div equals to document dot create element. We have discussed this thing in the first session of dynamic CSS. Div. Let me take div here. So I'm trying to create a div element here. Now in this div dot innerHTML, it means it will try to create a div. It will try to create a div here. It will try to create a div here. So div dot innerHTML, I just want to place name here. I just want to place my name, my location, and my image. I just want to place these three things. So let me write first one name. Let me write first one as a name. So what is this? Everything will be stored in data, right? So data dot name, data dot in the sense this one, data dot name, first one, data dot name. So I'm trying to call this next one. Once it is done, I want to have something called data dot. I just want to have a location here also. Let me write location. Let me take location here. It means data dot location. Now the same value I just want to have now image. So let me write here it as profile. So let me take it as profile. So I got a location also. I just want to give some spaces breaks, in the sense I just want to display something in new line. I'm just trying to use this breaks. Now profile is done. In this I just want to insert an image. So I'm writing img src equals to, in this let me put the values. So let me put some values here. Inverted quotations. Insert this inverted quotations. Let me take single quote for plus data dot, what is this, avatar underscore URL. So what is the key value we have? I'm trying to use the same thing here, dot URL. So automatically we will get URL here, URL. So here I just want to append this semicolon. Now if you can see, we didn't get any thing here. Why? Get data. Now let us see what we have written. So we have written get element by id of profile, div dot getElementById of profile here, document.div element, next one here. But we have created the element, but we haven't appended it. In the sense, we should able to append this created element inside this body. So let me append this, then we can get it. Like main dot append the child of what is the element I want to append, div here. What are the resultant we got? We just want to append this. So inside this div. So if you can see here, we were trying to read the values from this API, and we were trying to fetch here. Like this reading the values from the API can also be used for loading the cricket score. Like whatever the values, picking the values multiple um, mobile data from price of mobiles from the multiple websites. We can use using this JavaScript, like we can read the data from different websites servers, and we can load in our website also, like having a live cricket score, and all these things, like different APIs regarding food, meals, and all these things. So this is how we have done with how to handle the fetch API using JavaScript. Like if we will try to, I will try to mention the different APIs also. Here I wantedly use GitHub API in order to load my the profile data, so that we can understand it, like how it is going on. So this is how we have done with a basic example. So if we can have a quick overview what we have done, we were trying to learn about what is the use of fetch. Fetch will try to send a request to the server in order to handle some data from the API. It has two things. First, it will try to accept a parameter called URL. In this we have, as it accepts the promise, we need to handle this using then and catch. Then we'll try to get all the data from the API. Catch will have all the issues and errors. If you want to write the same function using arrow function, we will try to write in this way. We can also use using await also, but I'm trying to use this using this fetch. And in this I have shown you two basic examples how to retrieve the data from the API. Next one, the first example for food, and the next example for the all the GitHub users. So what I did is that in the same example, we were trying to read the value of my profile, I mean particular individual profile. In this, I was handling the data, and I stored in console.log of data. It means it was displaying the browser console part. Instead of displaying the browser console part, in order to retrieve the same data here, we have used this thing. So where it was reading the data and it was displaying using this dynamic DOM. Like we have created a div, we were reading a value, and it is trying to display the based on it. So this is how we have done with the basic fetch API. So if we can apply the same code in order to get the cricket score, you can just try it and comment below this video. You can just try how to fetch the data for live cricket score using this fetch API, like using this fetch method from the API. Thank you.